let me see how long chapter 2 is. Oh, chapter 2 is short. How long is chapter 3? Chapter 3 is short. Okay. So, well, let's do the next chapter. Why not? Chapter 2, The Groom. This is my first major excision. Chapter 1, The Bride, is almost in its entirety about the bride. Chapter 2, The Groom, only picks up Prince Humperdinck in the last few pages. This chapter is where my son Jason stopped reading, and there is simply no way of blaming him. For what Morgenstern has done is open this chapter with 66 pages of Florinese history. More accurately, it is the history of the Florinese crown. Dreary? Not to be believed. Why would a master of narrative stop his narrative dead before it has much chance to begin generating? No known answer. All I can guess is that for Morgenstern, the real narrative was not Buttercup and the remarkable things she endures, but rather the history of the monarchy and other such stuff. When this version comes out, I expect every Florinese scholar alive to slaughter me. Columbia University has not only the leading Florinese experts in America, but also direct ties to the New York Times Book Review. I can't help that, and I only hope they understand my intentions here are in no way meant to be destructive of Morgenstern's vision. Prince Humperdinck was shaped like a barrel. His chest was a great barrel chest, his thighs mighty barrel thighs. He was not tall, but he weighed close to 250 pounds, brick hard. He walked like a crab, side to side, and probably, if he had wanted to be a ballet dancer, he would have been doomed to a miserable life of endless frustration. But he didn't want to be a Sorry, hold on. But he didn't want to be a ballet dancer. He wasn't in that much of a hurry to be king, either. Even war, at which he excelled, took second place in his affections. Everything took second place in his affections. Hunting was his love. He made it a practice never to let a day go by without killing something. It didn't much matter what. When he first grew dedicated, he killed only big things, elephants or pythons. Are pythons really that big? I feel like those two things are different things. Maybe big in the sense of dangerous? Pythons? I don't really know much about pythons. When he first grew dedicated, he killed only big things, elephants or pythons. But then, as his skills increased, he began to enjoy the suffering of little beasts, too. He could happily spend an afternoon tracking a flying squirrel across forests, or a rainbow trout down rivers. Once he was determined, once he had focused on an object, the prince was relentless. He never tired, never wavered, neither ate nor slept. It was death chess, and he was international Grand Master. In the beginning, he traversed the world for opposition, but travel consumed time, ships and horses being what they were, and the time away from Florin was worrying. There always had to be a male heir to the throne, and as long as his father was alive, there was no problem. But someday his father would die, and then the prince would be the king, and he would have to select a queen to supply an heir for the day of his own death. So, to avoid the problem of absence, Prince Humperdinck built the Zoo of Death. He designed it himself with Count Rugen's help, and he sent his hirelings across the world to stock it for him. It was kept brimming with things that he could hunt, and it really wasn't like any other animal sanctuary anywhere. In the first place, there were never any visitors, only the albino keeper, to make sure the beasts were properly fed, and that there was never any sickness or weakness inside. The other thing about the zoo was that it was underground. The prince picked the spot himself, in the quietest, remotest corner of the castle grounds, and he decreed there were to be 5 levels, all with the proper needs for his individual enemies. On the first level, he put enemies of speed, wild dogs, cheetahs, hummingbirds. On the second level belonged the enemies of strength, anacondas and rhinos and crocodiles of over 20 feet. The third level was for prisoners. The third level was for poisoners. Pythons can be large but not elephant big. Okay, I mean, yeah, that's what I thought. But maybe, can they be bigger than a human? Like maybe they mean big in the sense of can completely crush a person or something. All right, let me start that last sentence over again. The third level was for poisoners, spitting cobras, jumping spiders, death bats galore. The fourth level was the kingdom of the most dangerous, the enemies of fear, the shrieking tarantula, the only spider capable of sound. I don't like that. Think so, may have to Google. I'll probably look it up after stream if I remember. Wait, no, we're gonna look it up now because I also want to know if shrieking tarantulas are real. Give me a second. All right, can cobras be bigger than a man? That's not helpful. How big can a cobra be? Adult king cobras are 3.18 to 4 meters, or 10.4 to 13.1 feet long. The longest known individual measured 5.85 meters, 19.2 feet. Okay, that's length. Oh, right. Pythons, not cobras. Okay, wait, but when I... Oh, no, that's user error. I typed the wrong thing. Python. How large can a python get? What? No. It's giving me information about the computer language. How large... Okay. Could a python or anaconda overpower a bodybuilder? No. That's just theoretical. What is the biggest snake in the world? From the Natural History Museum. Let's trust that one. Okay, accept cookies. The longest snake in the world is the reticulated python. The longest venomous snake is the king cobra. But we're not talking about cobras. Okay. The longest sea snake is the yellow sea snake, which I've never heard of. And the heaviest snake in the world is the green anaconda. Oh, and the heaviest venomous snake is the eastern diamondback rattlesnake. But comparatively, I think those are pretty small compared to the other ones on the list. Okay, so that answers that question. Now for shrieking tarantula. 227 kilograms. For the green anaconda, it's like 500. That, yeah. Okay, I guess I would, in terms of like, can it crush a human? I would put that in with the category of elephants as well. Do spiders make a screeching sound? No, but they can make sounds. Okay. Okay, the Queensland whistling tarantula, barking spider, or bird-eating tarantula. I think I don't want to know more about that. Just knowing that there's something that is real that he's basing his story on is good enough for me. Yeah, I'm not going to click on the Wikipedia article. Because one, I'll either get lost in a like rabbit hole learning about it, or I will like have nightmares tonight or something. Anyway, let's keep going. The The fourth level was the kingdom of the most dangerous, the enemies of fear, the shrieking tarantula, the only spider capable of sound, the blood eagle, the only bird that thrived on human flesh, plus, in its own black pool, the sucking squid. Even the albino shivered during feeding time on the fourth level. The fifth level was empty. The prince constructed it in the hopes of someday finding something worthy, something as dangerous and fierce and powerful as he was. Unlikely. Still, he was an eternal optimist, so he kept the great cage of the fifth level always in readiness. And there was really more than enough that was lethal on the other 4 levels to keep a man happy. The prince would sometimes choose his prey by luck. He had a great wheel with a spinner, and on the outside of the wheel was a picture of every animal in the zoo, and he would twirl the spinner at breakfast, and wherever it stopped, the albino would ready that breed. Sometimes he would choose by mood. I feel quick today, fetch me a cheetah, or I feel strong today, release a rhino. And whatever he requested, of course, was done. He was ringing down the curtain on an orangutan when the business of the king's health made its ultimate intrusion. It was mid-afternoon, and the prince had been grappling with the giant beast since morning. And finally, after all these hours, the hairy thing was weakening. Again and again the monkey tried to bite, a sure sign of failure of strength in the arms. The prince warded off the attempted bites with ease, and the ape was heaving at the chest now, desperate for air. The prince made a crab-like step sideways, then another, then darted forward, spun the great beast into his arms, began applying pressure to the spine. This was all taking place in the ape pit, where the prince had his pleasure with many simians. From up above now, Count Rugen's voice interrupted. There is news, the count said. From battle, the prince replied, Cannot it wait? For how long? Asked the count. Crack. The orangutan fell like a rag doll. Now, what is all this? The prince replied, stepping past the dead beast, mounting the ladder out of the pit. Your father has had his annual physical, the count said, and I have the report. And? Your father is dying. Drat, said the prince. That means I shall have to get married. That was nice and short, but also he said he condensed it down from the original. I'm very glad that he spared us the 66 pages of the Florinese crown history. On the other hand, because I have been doing a little bit of world building, I have been really tempted to go through and just come up with an entire history for my elves of this person was the king, and then the next person became the king, and a little blurb about each one. So from a writing perspective, because I want the world to feel complete, I can understand why that would be something that in the world of this book, why that would exist. That is a deep, dark pit of a rabbit hole. Yeah, it's partially because there might someday be maybe not specifically time travel within my world, but if definitely exploring stories from different time periods, and so having an idea of what was happening in the world during those time periods, I feel like I'm not going to be just staying in one present with my world. So I feel like I have to at least know a little snippet of what happened for each era, or each ruling age or something. But also I don't want to write anything that's boring, but sometimes I need that just so that I can be like, oh, okay, this is not good, I'll cut this out. But it to get it out of my head, I guess. But yeah, it's one of those things that I know that I'm probably going to end up deleting. That is daunting. You sound like Tully. I consider that a compliment. But I don't think that I have anything near as complete as Tolkien. I just have like someday I hope to be like him, maybe. But for right now, it's more of like um, I've been I've been watching a lot of TTRPGs. I haven't really played significant amounts of TTRPGs, um, but I have had some of my close friends being like, "Oh, you should learn to DM so that we can play in your world." And then that makes me feel like, oh, now I have to like know stuff that's happening in my world instead of just like holding it in my head. I have to like have it outlined and solidified. And so in that sense, I feel like, yeah, I have to come up with this whole entire history of like the entire history of the crown of the kingdom of the elves and the kingdom of the humans and all of that. And my interest is in dwarfs, but I feel like when I originally started writing the story and the world, I was very interested um, in elves. I'm like less interested in elves now. So now I'm tempted to do the same with all the dwarves because the dwarves have this whole history as well in my world. Um, so yeah, it's just a lot of work. And that's part of the reason that I want to try and stream a little bit more regularly on Thursdays so that I can set aside some time for world building. Um, just partially for myself so that I can eventually write stories, but partially because people have been asking like, "Hey, can you GM a game for us?" And I'm like, "I don't know the first thing about GMing, but I'll give it a shot." um, Rowling, Sanderson, Rothfuss all did do that too. Um, I feel like it to some degree, if you're going to be a writer, like you do have to do that. You have to. I don't know of anybody who just like holds everything in their head and then vomits it out onto paper and then suddenly they have a book. Like I feel like you do have to know how the world works. That's additional writing outside of like the narrative of the story that you're writing. Um, but I don't know, maybe there are some people out there who can just be like, "Ah, the world is this way. Here's the story." And just like put it out there. I don't work that way. I have to answer all of the questions about physics and like what is the magic like and what is the language like and all of that. That doesn't necessarily come through when you're writing prose. Hi there. Thanks for joining our book club. If you'd like to join the conversation, I would love it if you would leave us a comment. And if you'd like to see more, check out the playlist.